Good morning. What we're going to do today is a quick introduction to the Nova user interface, as you would see when you first start up a device or install Nova upon your own device. The home page initially looks like this, which is your logon page. If this is an out-of-the-box device, the default credentials are probably going to be admin and then lowercase password, unless there happens to be a password on the label of the device. The first time you log on, you will be prompted to change your password. So I'm going to go from lowercase password to big P password, just to get myself going here. And then I'm going to save that. It's going to warn me that I need to keep a record of it. And then when I come in and log in again, I'm going to see the end user license agreement, which I'm going to scroll down and accept. And now we're into the Nova homepage. What we see here on the left are the subsystems that make up Nova. So we have communications, networking, Influx time series database, we have Grafana on here, and we have the Nova SDK, which is somewhere we can run our own code, or we can run containers within the Nova containers. The actual subsystems that you will see will depend upon the license, but this is pretty typical. Down here we have the network interfaces of the device. I'm running on a virtual machine here, so I have two. I have Ethernet 1 and Ethernet 2, which are bound to two interfaces on my machine. And over here on the right, as we add communications applications, we will see those. Along the top, we have various menus that we'll come back to in a second. On the right here, we have security, so we can log off. We can change our password. We can change our preferences. By default, the time is shown in UTC, but if we want to change that to local time and maybe in US date format, we can do that. Here we have something for device management, which we'll come back to later, the help subsystem, the current time, which we can edit or sync to the browser, and here is the device information, which tells you what software you're running and allows you to do things like firmware updates or restarts or factory resets. Over here, as I said, we have the various subsystems, and each of them has a configuration that can be edited within the browser by clicking on the little pen. So if we were to go into communications here, we see our communications setup. I'm not going to get into all the details of this time around, but just to show you a simple thing, we could come into network protocols. We're going to click on add here. We're going to scroll down and select, where's it gone, Modbus Master. Under devices, I'm going to add a device, and I have a device on my network here, 192.168.40.116. And under there, I'm going to add a group, which is going to be an ordered group, to read some registers from this device. So I can put the address in here. I can just use the drop down, or I could just type in the address. And I want to read some 16-bit integers. I'm going to come over to parameters and just add 4 parameters. So now we're reading 40,001,234 into parameters 1, 2, 3, 4. We can rename these. Say we'll come back to this in a subsequent tutorial, but I'm just showing you a quick setup so we can see how the setup mechanism works. Once we've made changes, we can save them here, but they're not active until we commit them. The idea is you may be working on a complex configuration that you want to save your changes, but you don't want to deploy it yet. But we can hit this to deploy it, and now that's going to be running. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to control-click on Home, which will open the home page in another tab. And now we can see we have the Modbus Master running over here, and it's showing a status of good. One thing that we're very big on with Nova is diagnostics and logging. So if we click on this little log here, we can see a particular log for the Modbus Master. Now, we're not logging very much right now because, we're trying to save space. But if we come back to the configuration, go to the device, we can come in here and say we want to log status and transactions. And under network, let's say we want to log session and data. And now we're going to be logging an awful lot of stuff. So if we save and commit that, and we come back to this now we can see we are getting all of the frames shown in here. If we click up here on Show Status, or if we go back home and click on this little tree icon over here, we can see the status of all the protocols that we have running. So here we see the Modbus Master, the uptime, there are no errors. If we click on the device, we can see it's enabled, it's connected, and we can see statistics down here, how many read operations have been carried out, what the peer address is, because if it was a host name, that's the IP address that it resolves to. The minimum, maximum, and average, or the minimum, average, and maximum update times, and the amount of data we've sent. And we can also reset that if we want. So if we want to reset those stats, we can. Now we can come into the group as well and have a look. And here we see that the group is happy. It's doing all these reads. And if we click on this data tab, we can see the actual parameters that we're reading. So here we've got a live view of the data showing both the raw and scaled value if we were doing any scaling, when it was last updated and when it changed. So again, very big here on providing diagnostic and logging information so you can see what's going on. If we go back to the configuration here, maybe we want to make a change to this group. It's currently running continuously, but say we want to run it once a second, we could do that, make that change. And now that's going to be polling a little more slowly, maybe use a little less bandwidth. But the interesting thing is if we come home now, we can look at the history here and we can see the changes that have been made. And if we were to click on this one and say, what were the changes made in this commit, we will see that it will show us this group you see is purple here. And if we come in here, this tab is purple and these parameters are purple. And if we hover over them, it says, well, that was changed from continuous and that was changed from 100. So we have the ability to track changes to configurations, which is great if something suddenly stops working for allegedly no reason, because you can go in and see what's changed. Or if we decide, you know what, we want to put that back, we can just revert to that earlier commit. That's now in our editor. And when we commit it, we'll now be back to the continuous updates. Along the top here, we have the usual diagnostic tools. We can look at the system log, system status. We have network tools such as ping. And a nice little trick here is if we click on this, you'll see it will list devices that are known to the system. So D1 was that Modbus device we were talking to. So we can automatically select that and it will run the ping for us. Likewise, if we were to come here, we can go to packet capture on our interface. And instead of having to decide, you know, what IP, what port, we can just click on D1 and you notice it's configured it for the right IP address and the right TCP port, such that when we get the capture and download it, we'll be able to see that Modbus traffic. Each of the subsystems has a little utilities menu here that lets us copy the config to the clipboard or clear it. We can download it as JSON or re-upload it. So this is useful if you want to share configurations between devices, or we can just restart that entire subsystem. Over here, we also have the ability to back up and restore data from that subsystem. That's stuff that's distinct from the configuration, things like persistent tags and things like that. And here we get to look at the system level log. So this is the log of the subsystem, whereas over here we were looking at the log of the application. So that's a quick introduction to the overall UI of Nova. In subsequent tutorials, we'll dive into how to set the communications up and how to do the communications networking and visualization that the system is designed to do. But until then, thank you and goodbye.